You see the labels everywhere, right? Greener operations, sustainably sourced, carbon neutral. But when you're looking at two giant retail companies, how do you really know who's walking the walk? How do we cut through all the marketing noise and measure their actual footprint in a way that's, fair? Well, it turns out there's a system for that, and we're about to break it all down.
Just think about it for a second. How green is your favorite big box store really? It feels like an impossible question to answer, doesn't it? Because one company is talking all about its recycling programs while another is hyping up its energy savings. Without some kind of common ruler, it's just comparing apples to oranges, and it's almost impossible to tell what's real progress and what's just clever PR.
But there is a way to get some clarity. So here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the common language everyone is starting to use. Then we'll dig into what retailers actually have to report. We're going to uncover why it all starts with scale, connect that data to a real-world example, and finally, get into why this kind of transparency is a total game changer.
So the solution to all this confusion is having a standardized framework. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a nutritional label, but for a company's sustainability. It's a common language that lets everyone, from big-time investors to, well, us, read and actually understand what's going on under the hood.
This language comes from the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, or SASB for short. What they did was create a whole set of 77 different rulebooks, one for pretty much every industry you can think of. The whole point is to get companies to report on the sustainability stuff that poses real financial risks and opportunities for their specific business. And this isn't some small niche thing. These SASB standards are now looked after by the International Sustainability Standards Board. That's part of the same foundation that sets accounting rules for most of the world. So yeah, that gives these standards some serious global weight. And these standards are incredibly detailed. They spell out everything. They define the industry, they list the key topics to disclose, they give the exact metrics to use, they even have technical protocols on how to measure it all. But maybe the most important piece for making a fair comparison is this thing they call activity metrics. And that's all about measuring the sheer scale of a company. Okay, so now that we know there's a common language, let's see what that actually looks like for the retail industry. What are the big picture items that these standards make big box stores report on? And it's pretty fascinating how broad it is. It's not just the obvious stuff like energy management. It gets into how they protect our data. It dives deep into labor stuff like wages and employee turnover, and even workforce diversity. It also looks at the products themselves, where they come from, and even how they're packaged.
Wow, that's a lot of data to keep track of. But here's the thing. Before we can fairly compare any of it, whether it's energy use or how they treat employees, we have to start with the company's physical size. The whole system is built on this one simple idea: scale. In fact, after all that complexity, with dozens and dozens of metrics across all those topics, to make any of it make sense, it all boils down to just two surprisingly simple numbers. These are those activity metrics we just mentioned. The first number is about as simple as it gets. How many physical locations does the company have? You just add up every single store and every single warehouse. That's it. One clean, simple number. The second number gets at their actual physical footprint. What's the total area in square meters of all those places combined? So, number of locations and total area. Together, those two numbers perfectly define a company's physical scale. And this is where data can really come alive. Imagine watching an animated map where a dot just pops up for every single store a company has. Then you see little squares representing their floor plans, all tiled together to form one giant block. It gives you this immediate, gut-level sense of that company's true physical presence on Earth. So why are these two simple numbers about scale so unbelievably important? Let's just walk through a quick example, and I promise you'll see exactly how they create that aha moment of pure clarity. Okay, so look at this. Retailer X used 1 million gigajoules of energy. Retailer Y used 2 million. Just looking at that top line number, Retailer Y looks like the villain, right? I mean, they used double the energy.
So if you had to make the call right now, who would you say is the more efficient company? It seems obvious, but this is exactly where raw data, without any context, can be so incredibly misleading. But now, let's bring in that crucial activity metric, their total area. Look what happens. It turns out Retailer Y is 4 times bigger than Retailer X. So when we actually divide their energy use by their total area, we get energy use per square meter. And the story completely flips. Retailer Y is actually twice as energy efficient as Retailer X.
And that is the whole point. Context is absolutely everything. This process, where you divide by a measure of scale, is called normalization, and it's what lets us make a real, fair comparison. Without knowing the size of the company, the rest of the data is pretty much useless. Scale reveals the real story. So let's zoom out for the final takeaway here. Why does having a globally recognized, standardized system like this matter so much? Not just for Wall Street, but for all of us. The power of having a common standard is that it forces everybody to play by the same rules and show their work. It takes us past the vague marketing promises and into the world of hard data. It allows for those real apples-to-apples comparisons, which pushes for more transparency, helps us make better choices, and ultimately holds these companies accountable for the claims they make.
This whole framework gives us the tools to see what's really going on behind the curtain. So, the question really is, now that you know how a company's true footprint can be measured, what are you going to expect from the companies you choose to do business with?